So I just appreciate maybe if we would just take a moment of silence and just think about the people right now that are suffering, and also the people throughout the years that have lost their life to the dangerous temperatures in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice.
Inside those dorms, it's 120 plus. So I know what it's like to be fully clothed and not have a fan and feel like you're suffocating, and just go get in a shower, get soaking wet, and just go lay on a concrete floor. And that's really the only reprieve that you have.
You know, another friend who's at the Lane Murray unit here in Gatesville writes to me and says, you know, it's we were incarcerated together, and she says, it's so hot here, you know, I'm dying. It's that's hard to hear.
The temperatures in Texas prisons, Texas A&M did a study a couple years ago, and they showed that temperatures reach from 110 degrees all the way up to the highest recorded number at 149 degrees.
As Texas faces intense summer heat, people locked up in our state prisons are describing excruciating and dangerous conditions.
The majority of prisons do not have air conditioning in the cells.
Workers in state prisons say they need help. Former correctional officers describe unbearable heat and weekly medical emergencies inside prisons without air conditioning.
Of those, at least 51 died suddenly in medical distress, most of them found unresponsive in their cells.
And that's where people are living. It's a very dangerous situation.
Yeah, so Lioness was actually a dream that started when I was incarcerated. Me and a friend of mine, we had done, you know, at that point, I think she had done almost 15 years. I was on my second 10-year sentence. And we were sitting at the back table in the day room at the Mountain View unit, and we decided that one day we were going to get out. And it was this hope and this dream that all the experiences that we had while we were incarcerated and the women around us, that we would be able to educate people about and create change, hopefully on a legislative level.
And I don't know if it was just like one specific moment, but I do know we were just kind of looking around thinking, we don't have the voice that we want. As system impacted women, sometimes we feel like our voices just aren't heard.
We quickly realized how important it was to have that united female perspective when it came to criminal justice. And we felt like we weren't being completely heard in other spaces. So we're like, you know what? That's not a problem. We'll just create our own space.
It's great to have that bond and have somebody that you know that you can call up that has been in the same situation that you've been in. They can understand, they can relate to everything that you're feeling. You can go to them for advice, because who better to talk to than somebody who's been in your shoes?
And to know that the women on the inside see that and feel that, finally, after 20 years in this system, this is the first time I've ever seen a group of women who were formerly incarcerated stand together and move together.
It's given me a sisterhood, and that's something when you're incarcerated, and I think especially as a female, you make bonds in there, and you're never alone in there. And then when you're thrown out into the free world, you're kind of looking, and nobody understands the traumas and the things that you went through except for other formerly incarcerated women. And I think that's just what makes this organization so special.
For sure, right? Like, and that's why we chose the name that we did, right? Because what other animal can you think of that really exemplifies what sisterhood is, and that is a female lion. You know, the male lion will wander off. He will change different groups, but that group of female lions, they stay with each other until death. They raise cubs together, they hunt together, they do everything together. And I can't think of another symbol of what I experienced with the women that I was locked up with.
So we have several priorities that we're working towards making change in the prison system. Right now, at this moment in August in Texas, our focus is on the heat-related illnesses and deaths in our prison system. And we're not talking about comfort. You know, we're talking about life and death.
It felt like being in a hot car in the summer. Like if you're at work all day, you get out of work at 5, you go get in your car, shut the door. Imagine not being able to turn the air on or roll the windows down, and you're just breathing that hot air. That's what it's like.
They're supposed to bring in a cooler of ice water that the incarcerated people can fill up throughout the day. Well, that might be brought in early in the morning. It's gone immediately, and you don't see any more water.
And so, you know, there are lots of people in cell blocks that don't have windows, don't have access to open ventilation.
And, you know, and you've got 50 or 75 women competing for maybe 3 showers. You have to be let out of your cell to get into the shower. There might be one that has good water pressure. Of those 3, you wouldn't believe it unless you'd lived it.
Those ambulances are coming into the prisons on a weekly basis, twice, 2, 3 times a week, picking up ladies that are falling out. Heat-induced seizures, heat exhaustion, all of those things are very real and they're scary.
I think that I guess the most important thing that I feel that other people who haven't been through the experience is I wish everyone could experience prison. And not because I want them to be punished, but because I want them to be understanding and empathetic and compassionate, because people are people. And if it was you or your son or your daughter or your mother or your brother, you'd be singing a whole different tune. And it sucks that people have to be directly affected by something for them to be humans and have the humanity and the compassion that they should just for one another in situations that are inhumane.
I can't really explain what it's like. The best way I know how to explain incarceration is really just like being on another planet. It's like being on Mars, if you will. It's just so not normal and difficult to go through. It was for me, and I know it is for many others.
And, you know, that was one of those things that throughout the years I was like, man, how does anybody not see this and get super angry? Like, this is not right. So I think this is something that is really important as we continue to just really highlight the female experience.
It shouldn't take being affected by the criminal legal system to get angry about it. But that's what it took for me, because it started affecting me and I started getting angry.
And you have some people who they're like, it doesn't matter. They're locked up. They deserve to be in there, so they deserve to be treated a certain type of way. They deserve it. Like, they deserve to burn up in there. And that's not actually true. Like, they're still human. It's just something that it depends on the individual as a person, how your heart is.
Too often when we read stories about people that die while incarcerated, we hear stories about what they went to prison for, dehumanizing stories that don't pay attention to the value that they brought to others' lives, the things that they loved, the hobbies that they held dear, and everything that makes them human.
And I went out on the rec yard one afternoon and I sat down and I watched the women walking around the track. And because I am a people watcher, and I thought, God, these women, you know, this is not what I thought prison would look like. And basically, they looked like me, right? They looked like regular people who maybe you couldn't figure out what happened and why they were there. So that changed me. And when I got out, I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by a community of women. Same thing, right? So that too changed me. It allowed me to see women not necessarily from what they had done, but because of what happened to them. And once you see stuff like that, you can't unsee it.
And to have a group of sisters, of women who are doing the deal and who are making, their message, and that I get to be a small part of that or walk alongside them, makes me feel like it's not a wasted experience, and that I am a useful, valuable person, because I think they are.
I've been able to fix broken relationships within my family, and really just learn to live a completely different life. I'm almost 10 years removed from my charges. And honestly, I don't even feel like the same person anymore. I mean, I've just changed and grown so much, and been able to restore, a lot of things. And I know that if I can achieve it, then I have hopes that other people can, and I want to try to help them.
I have met murderers. I have met thieves. I have met drug addicts. I have literally met what people call the good, the bad, and the ugly. I have met them all. And every single one that I've met, in the moment that I met them, they could be beautiful people. And I would have never been in a position to see the beauty in the ashes had I not been in there myself, realizing that I was in that same rut, that same mud, that same place that the damned go. And I don't believe myself damned. I don't believe myself bad. I don't believe myself unworthy. And neither are they. But people who would just see my name and my number, and if they had to know my crime, they would write me off. And I was in there breaking bread with them. I was in there eating with them, working with them, living with them. And they are humans. Some of them are some of the most beautiful people I have ever met, better than anyone that I've met outside those walls. And when you see the beauty in them, the kind, the joy, the peace, I feel bad for some people out here.
This is a straightforward problem, right? It is a question of priorities and a question of money. And the Texas House this past legislative session did actually appropriate more than $500 million to install and mandate air conditioning in all Texas prisons. That failed to get a vote in the Senate. Senators there have not shown any willingness to do this. They say we don't have the money. That was false in this session with a historic $33 billion surplus. But more to the finer point, they say that they just don't want to do this. So we still lack the political will to air condition our prisons.
So one woman asked me one day, she said, do you think it'll change? Do you think that you're going to see change?
I believe that, that one voice is like a whisper and a united voice is like a shout. And with that, I think the only way you can do that is to let other people know that you're there willing to talk with them, yell with them, and that they have someone that will help support them.
I know that there are setbacks, there are obstacles, there are heartbreaks. We saw them this past session, but there's also a movement. And I don't think any political party or any limited thinking will be able to stop that movement.
Change comes from community. And we have to hold the people who are in power accountable for the things that they do and for their neglect.
I think ultimately what I got and what I see the women around me get is a huge sense of owning their strength and their power and understanding how they can take what happened to them and change the world.